If your feet go cold in the wild, you've got 6 hours before frostbite sets in, sometimes less. At 0 °F, exposed toes can freeze solid in under 30 minutes. And here's the worst part. Most people are doing everything wrong. It's not your boots. It's not the snow. It's you. These 5 mistakes are why your feet are freezing, and one of them is deadly. No fluff, no sponsors, just survival-tested facts that could save your toes or your life. Mistake number 5. Relying on insulation instead of airflow. All right, this one's sneaky. Everyone and their mother will tell you that insulation is the golden ticket to keeping your feet warm. Wool this, down that. Thinsulate, aerogel. It's all about packing in that sweet, sweet heat, right? Wrong. If your boots are sealed tighter than a submarine hatch and you don't have proper airflow management, you're not building a heat locker. You're building a humidity prison. Moisture, even in microscopic amounts, is the silent killer here. A single tablespoon of sweat can chill your foot to the bone when the temperature drops below freezing. Let's back this up with real numbers. The average foot produces about 0.1 liters of sweat per day, even at rest. That's over 3 ounces of moisture per foot just sitting around. Now, trap that inside a boot with no ventilation. You're basically stewing your feet like a bag of microwaved carrots. See, the problem isn't that your boots are too cold. It's that they're too sealed. When there's no way for sweat vapor to escape, it saturates your sock layers, eventually soaking into your boot's lining. And here's the kicker. Water conducts heat 25 times faster than air. Even if your boots are rated for 60 degrees, wet insulation loses over 90% of its thermal value. Think about that. It's like buying a winter coat made of Kleenex. So what's the fix? You need passive airflow. This means choosing boots with breathable membranes like Gore-Tex only if you're rotating your layers. Even better, old-school canvas uppers with leather and felt liners. They breathe naturally, and you can dry them out by a fire. This is why indigenous Arctic communities used layered natural systems, because they knew it wasn't just about insulation. It was about moisture control. So stop trusting insulation ratings like they're gospel, and start thinking like someone who has to survive 3 nights on the ice with no backup. Mistake number 4, skipping the sock rotation schedule. Yes, it's a schedule. Here's a fact that almost no one wants to hear. Your socks aren't magical. They don't just dry themselves, and they sure as hell don't stay clean. Yet I see people walking around in freezing conditions thinking their one pair of merino wool socks is enough to survive 3 days in sub-zero temps. No plan, no backups, no rotation. That's not preparedness. That's wishful thinking dressed in wool. The truth is, your socks are the first line of defense, and if you're not treating them like the critical gear they are, you're begging for cold feet, trench foot, or even frostbite. Real frostbite, like the kind that starts with numb toes and ends with amputated digits. And it all starts with moisture. Let's break it down. The average person takes 7,000, 10,000 steps a day. In winter boots, that means compression, sweat, and friction, all enemies of warmth. When your socks get damp, you're not just a little uncomfortable. You've just kicked off a cascade of heat loss that compounds by the hour. A damp sock can chill your foot in under 15 minutes at $20 with wind. Add a breeze or wet snow. You're screwed faster than you think. This is why military cold weather protocols include sock rotation as a non-negotiable. Arctic soldiers, mountaineers, and trappers alike all live by this. 3 pairs minimum. 1 on your foot, 1 drying in your pack, 1 airing out inside your coat or sleeping bag. That's the system. You don't go anywhere without it. And don't even think of rotating synthetics or cotton into this equation. Synthetic liners can work as base layers if paired correctly, but cotton is a crime against your feet. Even blends. If you're still using anything with more than 5% cotton content in your base layers, go ahead and mail your toes a goodbye letter. The fix here is simple but militant. Establish a sock rotation schedule like your life depends on it. Change at meal breaks. Dry them under your jacket while walking. Sleep with them under your armpits if you have to. Warm feet don't happen by accident. They're the result of obsessive moisture micromanagement. And if that sounds dramatic, then you've never had your toes freeze. Mistake number 3. Wearing boots that are too tight, aka blood flow suicide. If you're cramming your foot into a boot that feels just snug, congratulations. You're basically cutting off your own circulation and creating a perfect little freezer box around your toes. People underestimate this one every single year. And it drives me nuts. Think about this. Your blood is your central heating system. It's literally what delivers warmth to your toes. So if your boot compresses your foot even a little, you're slowing that blood flow down like a clogged pipe in a frozen cabin. And the colder it gets, the more circulation matters. Let's get scientific. Your body, when exposed to cold, performs vasoconstriction, narrowing of blood vessels to reduce heat loss. But guess what makes that worse? External pressure. A tight boot can reduce circulation in your feet by over 50%, especially in the metatarsal and toe areas, which are the first to go numb in sub-zero temps. Now, throw in too thick socks, an insole, and maybe even a liner. And what started as snug but comfy is now a circulation coffin. And then people wonder why their feet feel like frozen bricks. The fix? Go up at least 1 to 2 full sizes in your winter boots. I know, it sounds extreme, but winter boots are not fashion statements. They're survival tools. You want room. Room for air to warm up. Room for your wool socks to loft. Room so your toes can move like you're trying to play invisible piano. A good test. Wear 2 pairs of thick socks, slide your foot in, and if your toes can't wiggle freely like they're saying hello to each other, that boot is too tight. And don't forget the toe box. People forget this is where heat loss concentrates the most, because it's furthest from your core. Bonus tip. If your boot doesn't have removable insoles, rip them out and install a reflective heat insole. You can DIY this with windshield sunshade material or emergency blankets for cheap. You'll add up to 15% more retained heat just by bouncing warmth back toward your foot instead of letting it soak into a cold rubber sole. Tight boots are the enemy. Roomy, well-insulated space is the fix. And no, it won't feel like you're walking on clouds. It'll feel like your feet are still alive come morning. That's the point. Mistake number 2. Underestimating ground conduction and ignoring what's under your feet. Alright, let's talk about something almost no one addresses when it comes to cold feet, but it's silently destroying your warmth every minute you're outdoors. Ground conduction. Everyone's so obsessed with what's on their foot, they forget to think about what's under it. But here's a brutal fact. The ground steals more heat from your body than the air ever could, especially when you're standing still, sitting around a fire, ice fishing, chopping wood, or just existing in the winter woods like a frozen statue. Here's why this happens. Conduction is the direct transfer of heat from a warmer object, you, to a colder one, the ground. Unlike air, which insulates poorly but moves slowly, the ground pulls heat like a thief in the night. Snow, frozen dirt, icy pavement. These are all excellent conductors of cold. Studies done by cold weather researchers have shown that standing barefoot on ice drops foot skin temperature 10 times faster than standing in cold air. Now add rubber soles, which do not insulate well on their own, and you've got yourself a thermal siphon that works all day long. You think your boot failed? Nope. The ground just sucked the heat out of you like a vacuum. Here's how to fix it. Insulate beneath your foot like it's a priority, not an afterthought. Start with reflective insoles, like we mentioned earlier. These are non-negotiable. Then, if you're camping, never stand or sleep directly on snow or ice. Use a foam pad, spruce boughs, even your backpack. If you're stationary for long periods, watching a fire, hunting, cooking, use ground barriers. I carry a small section of closed-cell foam cut from an old yoga mat just to stand on when I stop moving. We're talking an ounce of weight for hours of preserved foot warmth. And here's a pro tip almost no one talks about. If your camp is on snow, dig a shallow trench under your fire and line it with wood or bark. That way, radiant heat reflects back and you're not standing on the freezing ground. Combine that with a boot system that includes a thermal insole and breathable layers, and you'll see your cold feet problem vanish, even when others are stomping and shivering. People obsess about jackets, gloves, and hats, but your foot is the part of your body that's always in contact with the coldest surface around. That's not something to overlook. That's a tactical vulnerability, and if you don't fix it, all the wool socks in the world won't save you. Mistake number 1. Trusting warmth ratings instead of field-proven systems. Here it is, the crown jewel of failure. The mistake that's ruined more winter outings, more toes, and more morale than any other. Blindly trusting the warmth rating on your boots or the marketing promises slapped onto your gear. And before you say, well, mine are rated for 40 degrees, let me stop you right there. That rating, it's basically fiction. It's based on lab conditions that assume you're standing still, not sweating, not exposed to wind, and that you've somehow achieved optimal humidity control in a controlled climate chamber. It doesn't reflect real-world survival. Let me put this in plain numbers. A boot rated for 40 degrees might keep your feet warm for 30 minutes if you're wearing the exact testing protocol socks, standing still on a rubber mat in a dry, windless chamber. But toss in snowmelt, real exertion, ambient humidity, and wind chill. That 40 degrees performance degrades fast, sometimes by more than 50%. In reality, many 40 boots start failing around 0 degrees if your system isn't dialed in. And that's why so many people end up frostbitten. Despite spending hundreds of dollars on Arctic-grade boots, you want to know what works better than some printed number on a tag. Systems thinking. That means building a modular, field-tested setup around your foot, not relying on a single product to do all the work. Here's the formula real cold weather operators use. Inner wicking liner sock, merino or synthetic. Thick outer wool sock with loft. Reflective insole to bounce body heat back. Removable felt liner to dry at night in your bag. Boot with breathable or easily removable insulation. Outer vapor barrier option if conditions call for it. Each layer has a purpose, not just a marketing claim. You control the temperature regulation. You control the moisture. And you never rely on one component alone. A guy with a $30 used pack boot and that kind of system will stay warmer than someone who dropped $400 on name-brand Arctic performance boots and walked into a snowfield with a single pair of damp socks. And here's something no one tells you. Every boot, no matter how good, eventually fails in extended cold. The only thing that keeps your foot alive out there is your awareness. Your willingness to rotate socks, dry liners, warm insoles in your jacket and adapt. You're not a mannequin in a catalog. You're a human dealing with real conditions. That's why you need a system, not a fantasy number. So next time you see a temperature rating on a box that promises extreme cold weather protection, treat it like a billboard that says, "Trust me, I'm a liar." Because if you don't know what goes inside the boot, what's underneath it, and how to manage it like a living system, you're already losing heat by the second. Look, frozen feet don't just ruin your trip. They end it. And if you're out in real conditions, they can end a lot more than that. These mistakes are avoidable, but only if you stop trusting gear and start trusting systems. Nobody's coming to save your toes if you screw this up. So if this helped, do not scroll past. Drop a comment with your coldest winter mistake, so we all learn. And if you're serious about survival, preparedness, or even just staying warm on a snow day, make sure you hit that like button so the algorithm knows this is info that actually matters. There's a link right here to the next video that'll show you exactly how to layer like Arctic survivalists, and why most layering guides online are straight up dangerous. Stay sharp, stay warm, and stay alive. I'm DJ from the Bare Essentials. See you in the next one.